Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. We have James. Don't call him a lawyer. Rippeon. What's going on, my man?
Good to see you.
This is great. We've been chatting forever. This is actually, guys, this is the first time we've seen each other on video because DM's how we get down most of the time. But tell everybody a little bit about you've had a lot of changes in the last couple months and big life changes. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's James. Grew up in Maryland, right outside of DC. Did the whole growing up thing, went to college, first generation college student, graduated, went off to law school in DC. After that, practiced for about 5 years, met my then girlfriend, then fiance, now wife, in DC in law school. And we worked and lived in Maryland for a period of time. And then, most recently, we decided to switch things up. So a job opening here in Fayetteville, North Carolina popped up for Amy, that's her name, my wife. And she decided to apply to it. And we ended up just rolling the dice and deciding to move. And the opportunity for me was that her mom actually owns a brokerage here down in Fayetteville doing real estate on the retail side. So I was going to decide to leave law, just do a total 180 in the career path and go full-time real estate, because we had been investing in real estate for 4 years prior to that decision. And we just thought it was a good time to make the leap. We had built up our assets, had very minimal debt. So it was just a great jumping off point to really take the risk and make a change.
Yeah. And, it's not easy for somebody to do. You're making, we all know that lawyers make a good living. So it's not like you're still relatively young.
Right.
Was it a hard decision or not really?
No, it was an easy decision to make. I love the firms I had the opportunity to work at, worked with great people. I could have easily seen myself making a life as an attorney forever, but it just was not necessarily where my passions were. You'll see this a lot with attorneys. Everyone's pissed off at the end of the day. You have litigation that comes up. I did a lot of litigation and quite a bit of corporate work too. Transactional side of things, you can mostly leave happy at the end of that. But when it comes to the litigation, nobody's happy but the lawyer leaving with the check. So, getting into a lot of situations led like that with clients led the career to not be as fulfilling. But the hardest thing about transitioning definitely had to be moving from a white collar job to something that is, lawyers are, from that until real estate agent, it was a perception shift. I guess that's the best way to kind of label it. It's almost felt like a step down. And I was really nervous to see how people would react to that. Would the people I went to law school with or worked with think less? But it was almost that was a limiting belief in itself.
Sure.
Because when I realized what I was getting into by making that transition, the future held way more opportunities than I otherwise would have as being a lawyer.
Well, I think what's interesting, right? And I kind of had this revelation in the last couple of weeks, I guess. It's not easy, but I think what we're after, and people in general, is even as a lawyer, right? My dad was a high-powered dentist in Texas, probably one of the best. You're making money, really good money, but you're ultimately still hitting up against the ceiling, right? With time or fulfillment or whatever. And with entrepreneurship, as rough as it is and as crazy as I have no money, I have tons of money, I have no money, I have tons of money. But we get to control the actions that predicate whether we have the money or not. And I think you can't really put a price tag on that freedom at the end of the day.
I agree. And you'll notice I didn't say I wanted to leave the 9 to 5 because I have no misconception that it's easier or quicker money. Being an entrepreneur is probably the exact opposite of what people think it's going to be when they first start out. And that's why my wife and I decided to build up a portfolio of assets and have a pretty comfortable jumping off point. We're very frugal. We don't spend frivolously. We're good with our money. So it made taking the risk much easier, for sure.
So this is what is interesting about you. Maybe it's your law background. I find you to be very pragmatic and unemotional. I may be wrong. I can ask you why. Unemotional about real estate and investing. I think that what's talked about a lot when it comes to investing is the flash and dash. The I flip, I wholesale, I do all those things. I feel like you have a very not systematic approach, but I feel like you have a very unemotional kind of plan, right? And that's kind of what my financial advisor talks about. The one you like to make fun of all the time is I had to say that pretty well. Just messing with you, bro. Crypto's a game. But I think that as young people, you look on Instagram, you see that I don't think a lot of people have a plan. And I feel like, what's kind of your outlook when it comes to when you got started in investing?
Well, of course, everyone gets into it. They see the flashy things that are coming across their desk where they can make quick money wholesaling or flipping. But you really have to nail down into what the wealthy people are doing to make the money they're making. And they're doing a few simple things. They're buying with the long-term view in mind. They're doing tax-advantaged business moves. And they're using smart leverage. And they're doing all these things in a combination that really helps compound and grow their wealth exponentially into the future. My view on wealth generation is very contrarian to a lot of people. You got people who advocate for diversified portfolios in your 401k and do your Roth IRA, but this is probably not a tasteful thing to say, but I think diversification is for poor people. If you look at anyone who's built an immense amount of wealth, it's highly concentrated bets. If you look at somebody who's been in real estate, they went all into real estate. They built a portfolio, they're managing it. They're building all these businesses, as spokes on that hub, growing that one business, and they go all in. That's an extremely concentrated bet. Same thing for any entrepreneur that starts a business, so you can, maybe save up a couple $1 million, investing your 401k and your Roth and things like that. But if you want a $10 million plus portfolio, which I'm not there yet, granted, but these are the things I'm learning from people who are there. You got to make concentrated bets and be willing to take a little bit of risk. But, and that's where kind of coming to that realization, I think, takes some of the emotion out of it. It's just money. It's honestly just money at the end of the day. And money, what is money good for? It's a unit to account for time. That's how I look at it. Yeah. So when you see money as an account for time, it kind of gives you a different perception of it. You don't see it as you don't want to hoard your money, that kind of thing, because you're just using it to gain time in the future. That's all money is.
So I study a lot of Naval Rocky, like he's my dude, and I'm reading his book for the second time, and I think this is really interesting. I don't know if I ever talked about this. Money and wealth are two different things. Money is I make this amount of money, I'm this profession, and I have this status. Wealth is long-term creation of freedom predicated on, jobs, fulfillment, a product, so on and so on. And it's those distinctions that I don't think that I've ever been drawn by money. I think what I'm realizing as I get older and I create my own businesses is that making money is a skill. Creating wealth is something totally different. And I think you're 100% correct. Like I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to go wholesale for 6 months. I'm going to make some money. And then wait, oh my God, there's a new shiny object. I'm going to go over here. And you're almost kind of like stopping and starting, and you're never really getting to the end. I don't think you've maxed out what you can create in said space. Is that what you see a lot too?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, when you're doing something that requires an input of time and the output is more money, that's, you're on a spinning wheel there. It's never ending. But when you're buying things that create wealth, those are the assets that work for you, generate equity and cash flow. So
So what when you're looking at a property, what type of properties are you investing in? Is it single families? Is it small multifamilies? What are you looking for in an asset?
Small multifamilies right now, for the most part. I really actually trimmed down my real estate holdings over the past, I don't know, 8 months or so. We had a partnership. We had 8 single families in there. We were going to 1031 exchange that into probably a $2.5 million multifamily somewhere in North Carolina or Ohio. Things started to get really crazy with COVID. As anyone who's been in real estate witnessed, we just couldn't find the right deal in time to execute on 1031. So we ended up still selling the properties, liquidating, reposition that money. In some of our conversations, I bet you can kind of assume what I did with it. I know Ryan would probably have a heart attack, with some of his risk managed clients, but I put it all into Bitcoin, man. Like, risk on. I made that call. I'm not going to claim to be an expert by any means in that kind of thing. We're transitioning from real estate to Bitcoin right now, but I see it as this, it's all interconnected in one way or another. We did that. I've got 69% of my wealth in that right now. It's a high concentration, of course, but that's where some of that money is. But as far as the real estate that we're going to be looking to acquire, probably in 2022, it's going to be small to mid-sized multifamilies, 5 to 15 units, and maybe some commercial buildings.
I think what's important when it comes to investing, right? And this is what I was talking to somebody the other day about, is that a lot of people invest to invest, but they don't have a belief behind the investment. Okay.
Right.
And what I mean by that is you're comfortable putting your money in crypto because there is a belief that you have behind the power and what it's going to do in the future, right? There's a lot of people. My biggest issue with people when it comes to investing is they're investing to hit a home run instead of investing because they have done their homework or had belief in it. And it's like, you're not going to say, hey, I put in this dollar and this dollar is going to be worth, and granted, that has happened in Bitcoin, but you have to have some rudimentary beliefs in what you're doing. And for me in my life right now, like with where the market is and where I am, I'm not so much worried about long-term cash flowing wealth as I am transactional wealth. So I can create cash to go put in those long-term things. Right. And so you can't really look at everybody's game as the same game because people are, I got divorced. It's different, people are in different aspects. But when you have that belief, it's a lot more comfortable. I talk to my buddy Adam all the time. He's like, dude, if you were to sit there and you were to spend your days looking at Bitcoin's price, he goes, you would jump off a cliff 7 times on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so that's what I love about people that are like, I'm putting it in. I'm not going to get emotional about it. And I'm just going to let it there, because I find it hard to believe if on a long enough time horizon, if you were to invest at a good price, I think you're going to make money, and no matter what thing you invest in, right?
So, the way I look at it, I'm just going to kind of alter kind of the things you're saying about it and how I look at it.
Sure.
I don't look at it measured in dollars. And I think it's an incredible flaw for people to measure their income and their net worth looking into the future in dollars, because we have a broken monetary system, hands down. Stuff is so manipulated. It's ridiculous. If you tried to short the market when COVID started happening, 2020, March, April, May, June, you would have got your face ripped off. The market should have gone down precipitously, but it didn't, because we've got all this intervention from the Fed and Congress. So it was around that period of time that I learned you just simply can't measure in dollars. Here's a fun little exercise. 1971. Do you know what a millionaire really meant to be? What it meant to have $1 million? It meant to have 44 average single family houses owned outright.
Okay.
Right now, millionaire would be about 2.6. That's how much the dollar has collapsed in purchasing power. Okay. So, your standard for being a millionaire back then, 1971 to today, doesn't work. So I now measure my net worth in number of properties and Bitcoin. And that's how I look at it. So these are 2 hard assets that are going to go up in price and value into the future. And that's how I benchmark wealth.
Because then the focus is completely different, and you look at it more from like we were talking about, a less emotional state, more of a business state. That's a really good idea.
Because, if let's assume like the government's pumping, a 5.4% figure CPI number down our throat, I think it's probably closer to 8 to 12. If your, goals are monetary goals are based in dollar, you're going to have to add 8 to 12% to that each year that this kind of nonsense continues. So, it was one of those things until we have like a stabilized market that, maybe denominating these kind of goals in a fixed unit basis, like the dollar, would make sense. But right now it doesn't.
No, because every which way that you measure things, right? Meaning, here am I coach, so that hour is worth this much and so on. But if I can go out and buy said properties and that buys back my hours, well, hell yeah.
That's another way to look at it, is just time. Yeah. How many hours do you have to work to save up for that down payment to buy that investment property? Average wages in America aren't really going up fast. I'm not making a political statement with, minimum wage things either way. But the fact is like, you have to work way more hours now to get into an investment or just a home to own. That's plain and simple.
And one of the areas, just from an overall, and I'd love to hear your opinion why you pick small multifamily. But that's why for me, like, I'm very high on like storage unit, trailer, small multifamilies, RV parks, trailer parks, because the buyer pool for that asset as the price continues to skyrocket up is far greater and will continue to stay greater. And so that's why I always caution people, like, don't get me wrong, you can make a ton of money flipping $1 million homes, but I just don't want to operate in a buyer pool that small. Is that the way that you look, why small multifamilies make sense?
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think that honestly, no matter what route you go, it can make sense. You just need to become an expert in it and execute and take action. Like, I know a lot of new investors fumble over, should I flip? Should I wholesale? Small multi? Should I syndicate? Self-storage? Industrial? It doesn't matter. You just got to get started and become an expert at what you're doing. And you can make money in California just as like you can make money here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. You sent me somebody to kind of help with getting into investment opportunities and just trying to mentor them and get them started, in the real estate game. And a lot of the mental hiccups come around like picking a market, like, some of these things that everyone experiences. But, once you choose what to do, whether it's multifamily or whether it's self-storage or mobile home parks, you become an expert in it. And that's where you really build your equity in your real estate business.
Yeah. I have a friend, Tyler Coble, who's a developer and
I follow some of the stuff he's does.
He's really good.
Doing some really crazy stuff.
Yeah, he's crazy. He's having a crazy year. He's a good buddy of mine. He's tenacious. That would be an understatement.
He's in Nashville, right?
Yeah, he's in Nashville. I can't even tell you how many projects he's working on right now. It's crazy town. But Bruce Peterson invests with him too. But one of the things that Tyler really blew me away with was when he became an agent after a couple of years, he made a decision that he wouldn't leave a 10-mile radius in East Nashville because it just was a waste of his time. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what? You can't do that. But he became East Nashville guy, and now he's destroying the area. Nobody goes to somebody else. Like that right there is a mindset shift.
There's niches and riches, man. That's what it comes down to. We talk about these people doing Airbnb profiled businesses. A lot of people who can be successful just doing it generally, but it's those that realize how they can niche down into a market and do that specifically, that, the word of mouth business that's generated from that is unparalleled.
So there's this guy who put out this book that everybody's talking about. I've read it 3 times already. This dude is a savage. His name is Alec Holmesy. He wrote a book called $100 Million Offers. He's got like 4 books in the series. He started in gyms. He makes so much money, but he talks about, think of your offer, right? And let's say your offer is a checklist to lose weight, all right? And then he went like, yeah, that's great, but that's a general. He said, then let's talk about to lose weight if you're this salesman, right? And then he went even deeper, and it's like, so the offer went from $15 to $1,000 to like $10,000 because it said B2B salesman of said product. And it's like, that's when it kind of highlights the, no, and this is what you're talking about with your buddy. And I don't want to give away the topic, but he's taking an idea for Airbnb and he's going 10 layers deep and saying, these are the people I'm going to serve, and I'm going to serve them the best that I can. And they're going to pay me handsomely for it. And I think, and I'm guilty of this too, and maybe it's just my personality, I'm very broad because I like multiple things, but don't, if you really like something, and I tell everybody, if you're going to do something, if there's a line from A to B, like Jahid in Savannah, they're serving a community of themselves where they came from. So that's very easy for people to relate to them. And I think people, especially with Instagram and all this shit, they're not drilling down to that niche, right? And it's I buy duplexes in these 3 counties and I'm just the best at what I do here, right? And no, I'm going to buy over here and I'm going to buy over there and where this deal makes sense. And then you wind up buying nothing, and then you wind up having nothing.
Exactly. I mean, it comes down to taking action at the end of the day. So once you find your market, and it's perfectly fine to transition, of course, you master something, maybe you find ways to automate it, put in your processes and systems, and let it run on its own. And I see a lot of people doing this with Airbnb, and it's a great model to the extent that you can automate it. People upgrade all the time into new classes. They start syndicating. They become that expert, and then they can put bigger deals together and use past experiences.
As my mentor would say, did you earn the right to move into the next asset class? Have you go ahead.
I was going to say that's always been my flaw as well. Shiny object syndrome. It's so easy to succumb to that, but there's a lot of great ways out there to grow business and get involved in real estate. And I've tried it all: flipping, wholesaling, single families, multifamily, not all of it. Haven't done syndications. And there's a lot of types of real estate I have not done, but Airbnb, trying a lot of things. And I think where the sweet spot, what I read, it was Crushing It by Brian Murray. I don't know if you've read that book. I think one of the bigger pockets people, I think, wrote a new book with him about multifamily.
Yeah, I want to get that one. Is it good?
I haven't read it yet. It's on the to read list, but the way he lays out his story for getting involved in the multifamily and commercial real estate, he mastered it, and that's kind of the blueprint that I'm going along myself.
Yeah, and I think ultimately what's interesting is like, this is my new thing, man. Done long enough, focused on the right things, anything will be, successful in the horizon, right? And I think that with the crazy prices that we're seeing in the market, and what did everybody tell me? Oh, like, I can't believe that you sold your property. And I'm like, well, hold on. In 4 years, it went up. By the way, it paid for itself and was a write-off, but it went up $140,000. Me or my partner are not in the market anymore. We're so far away from that market. And now we have more knowledge, more resources, and we're going to start a business that's going to make 20 times that amount of money that we can go buy, long scale multifamily with. That makes more sense for that, money that we're going to take here. And so each person's at different phases in their life, right? And ultimately have a plan, stick to it, but ultimately you're not going to know until you said it earlier, until you take action, right? Until you dive in, and you're going to learn more from doing than you are from reading. That's for damn sure, which still read though. But what I want to focus on in the end here, because I don't know if I've ever had anybody on here talk about it, right? But, crypto got beat around the woodshed for the last, 5 years. And all of a sudden this last year, it's the hottest girl at the party. And, a lot of people that weren't in it, for me, I'll just use my point of view. One, thank you, because you kind of got me into it. But here's my philosophy on it from an outsider point of view. And I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. There were too many smart people that I respect that were in it that told me I had to get in it. And that's the kind of way I view everything. Like, I don't know what the hell an NFT is, but I'm sorry, there's too many smart people doing it. And I thought the same thing about crypto. What got you interested in kind of investing in that market?
So started in 2018. I bought $100 worth of Bitcoin, and it literally at like 18,000, and it dropped, lost turned into $50. I'm like, well, this is bullshit. Like, I don't know why anyone buys this crap. And then it took a couple years, and then I bought it again. Right when it bottomed out at like 3,500, I bought one Bitcoin. And then it went up like 20%, sold it. I'm like, I'm not much of a trader. This isn't for me. And then forgot about it until 2020. That's when I became interested by it, looking around at the economy, trying to figure out why shorting the market is not working, realizing that money is just being manipulated. So reading into that more and more, reading great books by Ray Dalio and like When Money Dies, about Weimar Germany and how hyperinflation works. And, just all this plethora of information that's out there. When you know the context to put it in, you can go gather it and put all the pieces into place. I started looking at Bitcoin, researching it, trying to figure out why it became $1 trillion market cap asset at one point. Now it's about 800. Trying to figure it out, because at that point you can't just dismiss it. You're just being willfully ignorant to it. It's a massive player in this space. You've got some of the biggest, most intelligent people in the world looking at it. I will caveat: I don't buy any other cryptos. I don't do NFTs. I don't know anything about those things. They all claim to do one thing, and I'm a pretty simple guy. I invest in the thing that is the market leader, has the biggest market cap, that the most successful, prominent people are buying. Like, I'm not going to pretend to be more intelligent than everybody who's buying all these other shit coins, Dogecoin and Rocket and whatever. Like, I don't know how those things work. I'm not going to claim to. I'm not even going to try to learn it. But what I have done is a little bit of research to understand why things are being manipulated across the world, from here to Germany to Japan. China, surprisingly, is probably manipulating their currency the least, and trying to put that all in the context for what that means 40 years down the road. And, if something were to displace Bitcoin as a market leader, I'd have to reevaluate a lot of my assumptions, my beliefs. But until then, I think there's a lot of hope in it, and it presents a solution to a lot of problems we're facing. And people who own assets don't necessarily see it as clearly as the working class, and people who save in cash in their bank accounts, and people who aren't even banked. I don't know if you've been following this at all, but the stuff that's going on in El Salvador is incredible. They've literally banked like 50% of the population down there in a matter of 10 days, because El Salvador made it a legal tender law where everyone must accept.
So those people didn't have banks beforehand?
They were unable to have access to any banking institution for one reason or another.
But
if you had a cell phone, if you could have a cell phone, you're now banked with Bitcoin. You download a little app and you can transact for zero fees.
It's ridiculous. It's game changer. Yeah.
So they've got this. It's called, when you start to evaluate how money works, you have base layer money that at one time could have been gold. And then you have these layers built on derivatives above that. And you have, what's held as gold could be, when we had a gold standard, considered money. And then you have paper gold, like US currency notes. And then you have derivatives on every other type of money after that. In El Salvador, they're using something called the Lightning Network. And it is a layer 2 money based on top of Bitcoin. So it's this transactional layer where it's almost feeless, it's permissionless, it's super easy to use, and all these impoverished people are able to have an opportunity at economic freedom. And digging into all that rabbit hole, that's kind of what gave me an appreciation for it. Because selfishly, at first, it started like, wow, this thing's going up a shit ton % every year, and then you start to peel back the layers of the onion, and you say, this is actually a bigger conceptual thing that you really have to have an appreciation for, because everyone gets sucked into the number go up narrative, but that's only such a tiny part of the play.
Well, I think at the end of the day, I think I love to study behind why people are buying, so on and so on. I think the number one thing that I like is when you take the power out of the people's hand that have had the power forever, meaning collecting their fees and all that shit, is that's when you're disrupting the market. That's when you're allowing Frank over here to become, not as beholden to Wells Fargo or Citibank or something like that. And that's when, if they're getting upset, if Citibank and Wells Fargo are getting upset, then you're probably on the right path.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think I tell everyone, do their own due diligence. You'll get your face ripped off if you're trying to leverage trade this thing, and you probably deserve to.
Yeah, you probably, if you think you're getting in for a quick ride, don't.
No.
Yeah.
And I listen to Matty A's podcast all the time, and he says, wealth isn't made in the microwave, it's made in the crock pot. But I think that, what some people don't realize is that this is a crock pot play for me. I'm not going to touch this stuff for 40 years, like buying it and holding it. I'm not trading it. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to outperform a lot of other assets over the long term, but you have to be willing to withstand that volatility for years at a time. You got to be down 40, 60, 80%.
Dude, I was talking to those guys the other day, and I told them my favorite meme in the entire world, because same thing happened to me. I bought crypto. Boom, it jumped down 30 grand. The James Franco with the noose, and he goes, right. "Oh, this is your first time?
Welcome to the game."
Yeah, welcome to the game, guys. Guys, it takes a little time, but you have to remove some sort of emotion from it and understand there's a calculated risk that you're taking, but also a reward if you know why you're doing it. So if people want to find out more about your journey, they want to follow what you're doing, how would they do that?
Yeah, I post all my crazy stuff on Instagram. You can follow me, James_Rippeon, Rippeon. Reach out to me. I'm often trying to help investors get into their first deal too. So I'm working with two people, not charging any money for it either. I'm just wanting to give back and help people get their foot started in real estate, because it's changed my life, and really trying to help other people change theirs. And I know that first deal is what really holds people back. So reach out to me personally if you want some help. Happy to spread some love there.
Yes, guys, he is helping. So please reach out. Guys, if you like this episode, send it out to your friends. Share it with somebody that will get some value from this. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.